What is going on there? My name is Jared Haas, and welcome to Post Race Conversations after Kansas Speedway. This weekend, we are joined by Frontstretch's behind the scenes man, MVP Michael Bachmann. Michael, this race, again, a very chaotic race for the playoff drivers. You had Tyler Reddick, Kevin Harvick wrecking out, and you had multiple drivers getting speeding penalties. You had Kyle Busch spinning out, not having a good run. Who is in most trouble going into Bristol after this race at Kansas?
Spring tire concerns were at the top of everybody's list, and unfortunately for a number of playoff drivers, like you had said, Tyler Reddick, maybe not Kevin Harvick, but Tyler Reddick especially, being in the poor part of that. He unfortunately wrecked out, looked like he had one of the best cars, and unfortunately has a 35th place finish to show for it. But when we look at this playoff grid now, the first name that I look at is Kevin Harvick, because Kevin Harvick, obviously his playoffs has not gone according to plan. And, when he won those couple of races in the regular season, and it looked like Kevin Harvick was maybe going to be, that guy to make a deep run, got all this experience, knows how to work this playoff system quite well. He comes into Bristol virtually in a must-win situation, but at a track where he has finished top 10, the past 5 races. This is a place where Kevin Harvick knows how to get it done, and as long as he is able to keep that car clean, I don't think a win for Kevin Harvick is necessarily out of the question, especially having put together a couple of wins this year already. A guy that I look at on this line, the first that really jumps out to mind is Austin Dillon and Chase Briscoe. Chase Briscoe, we look at the dirt race earlier this year, was there. Kyle Busch stole that one between the battle between Reddick and Briscoe. So, dirt's one thing, but I think Austin Dillon's in the worst situation here just because of his track record at the track. You take a look at a Briscoe, a Tyler Reddick, even a Daniel Suarez for that matter, that do have good experience on dirt. And just, racing at the track itself, I do look at Austin Dillon as that one outlier. But if I'm anybody that's not named William Byron, Denny Hamlin, Joey Logano, anybody with a 40-plus point buffer, anything can happen, and nobody is going to be safe, especially at a track like Bristol, where we know guys are going to be beating and banging, and it's going to be that take no prisoner mentality for a lot of these playoff drivers. Christopher Bell, the only one locked in, with 2 non-playoff drivers spoiling the party in the first 2 weeks. So it's a mixed bag, and I think we're going to see fireworks on Saturday night.
I didn't see that, and if you had the parlay of non-playoff drivers winning the first 3 races, you're going to make a lot of bank here today. So we'll see with Bristol on that, but I want to pivot there. We had Bubba Wallace winning the race, took it relatively from Alex Bowman, had his car come on strong late in the run, didn't have a bad pit stop, which hurt Bubba Wallace's team early in the year, most notably at Nashville. What does this win mean to Bubba Wallace for, finally winning a race under green flag conditions?
Yeah, it's huge. Even in his post-race interview, you could just see the sheer emotion, the joy for Bubba Wallace. And this was a big win for him, filling in for the 45 car in Kurt Busch's absence. A really, really interesting move to have that car, which is still fighting for an owner's championship, have Bubba Wallace wheel it. So for him, got to be a massive weight off his shoulders, especially getting that authentic win under green flag conditions. Like you said, he's got Talladega hanging over his head, and that definitely is worth a win. But this one here is obviously way different, drove a great race, and was able to keep that car up front. So happy for Bubba Wallace. Hopefully, this was a team that throughout most of this year and last year with 2311, treading water, there was a lot of expectation with this team, a lot of standard basically held at the top as to how this team should be performing. And now putting together complete races, and Bubba Wallace, has shown a lot of speed this year. It's just been the pit crew that's kind of taken him out of a lot of these opportunities. But you take a look now, everything pretty much goes together, and the 45 car is in victory lane at Kansas for the second time this year. So it's a big, big win for Bubba Wallace. And I think that you'll just continue to see the momentum with him as a driver and self-confidence, which is something that we know is big for Bubba. And like I said, just hopefully we'll continue to see that car and that team make strides to be more of a consistent player, challenging for top 10s, top 5s, and wins for that matter.
I think this is a win that's come full circle for Bubba Wallace, especially if you look in the earlier parts of 2022. 2021 first season, especially with Trackhouse, there's a lot of, learning with a new team, a lot of that pressure that now Bubba Wallace is in more of a legitimate ride compared to Richard Petty, where the team was, consistent. He would have decent runs, but not contending there in the wins, having the support from Toyota. And you can see the progression early in the year. Bubba Wallace was kind of down on himself, frustrated. Mistakes were costing him good runs. And the team has progressively gotten better. And it's just proven that 2311 Racing is a winning team. I mean, you had two different drivers at the same track win a race. And I think that kind of proves how much 2311 has grown in the past 2 years. And I think Bubba Wallace is starting to believe that confidence that he is a driver that's in the NASCAR Cup Series that can win a race. I think that's an important thing to note. That last year was, that Bubba Wallace is in the NASCAR Cup Series contending driver, and now he's someone that could win. It's going to be interesting to see what we're going to get in the comments. It's a lot of slack with the issue with Bubba Wallace's took, but I mean, he won the race pretty much straight up as you can be. Won it with a green flag pass. Wasn't really some wacky strategy, ran in the way, even though at Talladega, he was running up front and was in the right position, in the right place. But we'll see how that goes for Bubba Wallace, if he can get more wins or what goes on with 2311. Michael, I want to close with one last thing. I want to get your predictions as we are going to be topping the playoffs from 16 to 12 drivers. Who do you have not making the playoffs in the round of 12?
Yeah, so when I take a look at this playoff grid, outside of Kevin Harvick, it's pretty much anybody's game, excluding needing that win. For Harvick, despite his stats, I just don't know. It's such a, it really is such a slingshot when you look at this, right? Because he's gotta do that. I think he's good enough. I don't know. I'm not confident enough saying it. So I'm going to have Harvick out of the playoffs, even though I'm pretty sure I did pick him to make it to the championship initially. So that's, circumstances happen. It's not always perfect. But I am going to take Harvick. I don't foresee Chase Briscoe or Austin Dillon either making it out. And when I take a look at this list, I hate to say it, but I think that the final guy that's going to miss out is going to be Austin Cindric, the rookie. You take a look at the lack of experience, bit of an inconsistent season for Austin Cindric, and then just some of these other guys. I like Suarez a lot more, and I still believe in Kyle Busch, man. I mean, this team has been dealt with the kitchen sink, I feel like, this year. And I mean, look, Kyle's lucky that he was able to get that win at Bristol Dirt to have the security of being in the playoffs to begin with. But I still believe in Kyle, and I think that he'll be moving on to the round of 12. So I will go with Harvick. I'll go with Briscoe, Austin, and the two Austins, Dillon and Cindric.
I at least agree with you with 3 of the 4. I think Haas Racing is going to lose both of their drivers at the round of 12. Briscoe and Harvick, I agree with Austin Dillon, but I think it's Suarez. I think Trackhouse Racing hasn't been really performing that well in short tracks. There's not a lot of mojo going on. Cindric, did pretty decent here at Kansas, and Reddick, like I said, I think he can be up there up front, keep in position, and I think also Kyle Busch as well. You can't bet against him. So we'll see who the final 4 drivers is going to be. But one final note, with these playoff structure, championship favorites move in and out because you got Christopher Bell leading, William Byron, 2 people that we weren't really talking about as favorites. Who are you viewing as the championship favorite now going into Bristol?
Going into Bristol, man, I want to say Denny Hamlin. I really do. Because I look at experience, man, and Hamlin hasn't really had, he too has had that very inconsistent up and down season. I mean, he was coming into the playoffs. I think he was in the 20s in regular season point standings. So I like the consistency out of Hamlin, and he just, outside of, winning the championship race, leading up to it, he comes through in those big moments. So I like Hamlin. I think that of these guys, when you mentioned like Christopher Bell, when you mentioned William Byron, Joey Logano is another name as well, just a veteran consistency factor. But I do like Hamlin. I would take him right now as my championship favorite going into Bristol, but probably going to have this conversation week after week, as it's going to be fluctuating ever since, with just the parity of this season. You can never be too sure. But I do like Denny Hamlin, and Toyota's, really showed up today. We'll see if they could bring it in Bristol.
I feel the same way. We're the championship favorite. We're probably not talking about that driver, the champion, for at least half the season. But I'll have to agree with you that Denny Hamlin, he's performed well. Finished second to Eric Jones. Finished second behind Bubba Wallace. Best playoff driver right now. Like I said, he would have won both of those races within striking distance for both of those races, but couldn't seal the deal. So I think Hamlin's obviously a favorite. I think Christopher Bell could be revitalized. He could sneak his way in himself into the round of 8. I would not be surprised. But again, those mulligans, if you use them up, you're in trouble. Bachmann, it was great to talk with you in here with some post-race conversations. And from everyone here at Frontstretch.com, always make sure to have a great race weekend and subscribe and like our content.
Jared Haas with Frontstretch.com. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Also, check one of those 2 videos out that we have right beside you. Visit Frontstretch.com for more great content.